When you wake up in the morning, before you even check your phone, before the world throws its noise at you, you need to remember one powerful truth. You are in control of your response. That one sentence can completely shift the way you handle conflict, stress, and even your own self-doubt. Think about how much energy we waste every single day trying to control the uncontrollable. People's opinions, their reactions, their choices, even their moods. We try to predict what they'll say, rehearse how we'll defend ourselves, and sometimes even carry the weight of how others behave as if it were our responsibility. But here's the thing, you can't control them, you can't make people speak kindly. You can't force them to understand you. You can't stop the world from being unfair sometimes, but you can always decide how you respond. Your response is your real power. It's the steering wheel in the car of your life. If you give that wheel to other people, they'll take you wherever their emotions want to go. But if you keep your hands firmly on it, no matter how much someone cuts you off in traffic, no matter how rude someone is in the comment section, no matter how unfairly your boss treats you, you still get to choose your lane. That's the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is instant. It's fueled by emotion, it's raw, and most of the time, it's regret waiting to happen. Responding, on the other hand, is intentional. It's calm, it's thoughtful, and it protects your peace. Now, let's be honest, it's not easy. When someone insults you, your first instinct might be to fire back, to prove them wrong, to defend yourself. That's the reaction. But when you pause, breathe, and remind yourself, I'm in control of my response, you reclaim your power. You stop handing over the keys to your emotional well-being. Because here's the hard truth, nobody makes you angry. Nobody makes you lose control. You decide to give them that permission. And when you realize you don't have to, it's liberating. Picture this, someone throws a match at you, trying to ignite a fire. You can choose to pour gasoline on it, or you can choose to pour water. That's your response. And every time you choose calm over chaos, patience over pettiness, silence over shouting, you're training yourself to stay in control. That doesn't mean you suppress your emotions or let people walk over you. No. It means you're strong enough to respond in a way that serves you, not in a way that satisfies your ego for 5 seconds and costs you peace for 5 hours. I'll give you an example. Imagine someone cuts in line at the grocery store. Reaction. You confront them aggressively, raise your voice, maybe even cause a scene. Response. You calmly say, hey, excuse me, I was actually next. Or sometimes you even let it go because the cost of that conflict isn't worth your peace of mind. That's control. That's strength. It's not about being passive, it's about being intentional. And here's the beauty of it, the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. At first, it feels like climbing uphill. Your emotions want to take over, your pride wants to win, your old habits want to shout louder. But every time you remind yourself, I am in control of my response, you're rewiring your brain. You're building a reflex that protects your peace. One day, you'll notice someone tries to bait you into an argument, and instead of exploding, you just smile and walk away. Not because you couldn't fight back, but because you're wise enough to know you don't have to. You see, the real test of strength isn't how loudly you can shout back, but how calmly you can hold your ground. It's easy to mirror other people's negativity. It takes zero effort to meet anger with anger. But it takes real maturity, real self-respect, to stay centered when the world is trying to pull you off balance. And that's what makes this one truth so powerful. When you wake up and remind yourself, I am in control of my response, you're putting on mental armor. You're saying, no matter what comes at me today, I won't let it dictate my state of mind. And let me tell you why this matters so much. Because life isn't about avoiding problems. It's about handling them better. You can't stop challenges, but you can stop them from stealing your joy. You can't stop rude people, but you can stop them from making you bitter. You can't stop mistakes, but you can stop them from defining you. Every response you control is a victory, a small act of self-mastery that compounds into inner peace. So, the next time you're tempted to react, take a second, breathe. Ask yourself, will this response serve me or sabotage me? Because that's the choice you make every single time. And when you consistently choose the response that serves you, your life begins to change, not because the world became kinder, because you became stronger. Remember, your greatest freedom is not in controlling others, it's in controlling yourself. So tell yourself every day, I am in control of my response. And when you believe that, no one and nothing can take your peace away. Every single person listening to me right now has a moment in their life they wish they could erase. A mistake, a failure, a choice they regret. Maybe it was something you said in anger. Maybe it was a decision you made out of fear. Maybe it was an opportunity you let slip away because you doubted yourself. And the problem isn't just that the mistake happened. The problem is that you replay it over and over, like a movie stuck on repeat, convincing yourself that this one moment defines who you are. But let me tell you the truth, you are not defined by your mistakes. Your mistakes are not your identity. They are your teachers. They are lessons written in ink that can't be erased, but they can be studied. Every failure has something to reveal if you're willing to look at it through the right lens. When you tell yourself, I am not defined by my mistakes, you give yourself permission to grow. You give yourself permission to stand up after you've fallen, to learn, and to move forward stronger than before. Think about it. The most successful people you admire didn't get there by living flawless lives. They got there because they failed. Sometimes publicly, sometimes painfully. But they refused to let that failure be their final story. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Imagine if he let his mistakes define him. Imagine if he gave up after the first 100 failures. We wouldn't even know his name. The difference between him and so many people isn't that he was smarter. It's that he refused to let mistakes become chains that tied him down. Instead, he used them as stepping stones. But here's the issue. You and I, we don't always treat our mistakes like stepping stones. We treat them like labels. We say, I failed that test, so I must be stupid. I lost that job, so I must be worthless. That relationship ended, so I must be unlovable. Do you hear the trap? You take an event and you turn it into an identity. And once you wear that identity, it controls how you see yourself, how you speak to yourself, and how you show up in the world. That's why this reminder is so powerful. Every morning, every single day, you need to tell yourself, I am not defined by my mistakes. Your mistakes are moments, not definitions. They are part of your story, but they are not the title of your book. You can choose to carry them like heavy baggage everywhere you go, or you can choose to extract the lesson, drop the weight, and walk lighter. Because let me ask you this, what good does it do to punish yourself forever for something you can't undo? Regret without reflection is just self-torture, but regret with reflection is growth. Now, does that mean you ignore your mistakes? No. Owning them is essential. If you hurt someone, you apologize. If you fell short, you take responsibility. But owning a mistake is not the same as marrying it. You don't have to let it define every version of you moving forward. Too many people live trapped because they confuse accountability with identity. They say, I messed up, therefore I am a mess up. That's a lie. The truth is, I messed up, but I can do better. Let me share something personal here. I've seen people spend years in shame over a single bad decision. They didn't chase the career they wanted because one teacher once told them they weren't good enough. They didn't try again in love because one relationship ended badly. They didn't start the business because their first attempt failed. And so they built their lives inside invisible walls, walls made of old mistakes. But those walls are only as strong as the power you give them. The second you remind yourself, I am not defined by my mistakes, the walls start to crumble. Think about a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they bump into things, but nobody looks at that child and says, well, I guess walking isn't for you. You failed? No. We know falling is part of learning. But as adults, we forget that truth. We treat failure like proof that we should stop instead of proof that we are trying. If you can see your mistakes as part of the process, not the end of the road, your entire perspective changes. So here's the challenge I want to give you. The next time your mind starts dragging you back to that old memory, that failure, that regret, you stop it. You take a deep breath and you say out loud, that mistake does not define me. It taught me something. It shaped me, but it does not own me. Because you are not the same person you were back then. You have more wisdom now, more experience, more clarity. And if you let your mistakes refine you, instead of define you, they will become the reason you grow, not the reason you stay stuck. At the end of the day, your value doesn't decrease because of one wrong turn. Your worth isn't negotiable based on your track record. You are not the sum total of your mistakes. You are the sum total of how you rise from them. And if you carry that truth with you, if you remind yourself every day that you are not defined by your mistakes, you'll stop walking in shame and start walking in strength. There comes a point in life when you realize nobody else is going to guard your peace for you. Not your friends, not your boss, not even your family. Because the truth is, everyone is living in their own world, carrying their own problems, and sometimes even unintentionally adding to yours. And if you're waiting for someone else to hand you peace, you're going to be waiting forever. That's why this simple reminder is so powerful. My peace is my responsibility. Think about how often we give that responsibility away. Someone says something rude, and suddenly our entire mood shifts. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and we carry the frustration all the way to work. Someone doesn't return our call or doesn't text us back, and we let it ruin our whole day. When we do that, we're basically saying, "Here, you take control of my emotions. You decide whether I'm calm or stressed, happy or upset." And once you see it that way, it sounds ridiculous. Why would we ever give that much power to people who often don't even realize they're affecting us? Peace is not about living in a world without noise, without conflict, without stress. Peace is about creating space inside yourself where those things can't control you. And that space doesn't appear by accident. It's built by choice. Every single day, you make choices that either protect your peace or destroy it. You make choices about who you allow into your circle, what conversations you engage in, how much time you spend scrolling online, and even how you talk to yourself. Now, let's be clear. Protecting your peace doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. It doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It means handling those problems without letting them poison your mind. It means knowing the difference between what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Because not everything deserves a reaction. Not every comment deserves your reply. Not every battle deserves to be fought. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is to walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know your peace is worth more than proving a point. And here's something important. You don't need anyone's permission to protect your peace. You don't have to explain to people why you set boundaries. You don't have to justify why you don't engage in every argument, why you say no to certain commitments, or why you choose silence over noise. Your peace is yours. And if someone doesn't respect that, it's not your job to convince them. It's your job to enforce it. I know that can be uncomfortable, especially if you're someone who's used to pleasing people, someone who doesn't like conflict, someone who feels guilty saying no. But let me tell you, every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to your peace. And every time you say no to something that doesn't align with you, you're saying yes to your peace. Which voice matters more? The voice inside you that needs rest and clarity, or the voices outside you that demand more than they give? Peace is also about what you allow in your mind. You can't spend hours scrolling through negativity online, comparing yourself to everyone else, reading arguments in the comments, and then wonder why you feel anxious and restless. You are feeding your mind chaos, and chaos grows wherever it's fed. If you want peace, you have to be intentional about what you consume. That means protecting not only your time and your space, but your attention. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and whatever you spend it on multiplies. Spend it on drama, and drama multiplies. Spend it on gratitude, reflection, growth, and peace multiplies. Another thing, peace is not the absence of struggle. It's the presence of perspective. You can be in the middle of a hard season, with bills stacking up, with people misunderstanding you, with pressure coming from every direction, and still have peace. Because peace doesn't mean your circumstances are perfect. It means your perspective is grounded. It means you remind yourself, this situation is temporary, this stress is real, but it doesn't own me. I am bigger than this problem. When you think that way, you carry a calmness that no outside storm can shake. Let me give you an image. Imagine your peace as a house. Every day, people, situations, and distractions come knocking on the door. Some of them are welcome guests, love, kindness, laughter. But some of them are intruders, anger, drama, negativity. If you open the door for everyone, don't be surprised when your house becomes chaotic. Protecting your peace means deciding who gets in and who doesn't. It means locking the door when negativity knocks, even if that negativity comes dressed as someone familiar. So when you wake up each day, you remind yourself, my peace is my responsibility. Nobody else is going to guard it for me. And the good news is you don't need them to. Because you are strong enough to protect it yourself. And the more you do, the more your peace becomes unshakable. People will notice. They'll wonder why you don't react like you used to, why their negativity doesn't pull you down anymore, why their chaos no longer controls you. And the answer is simple. Because you finally took responsibility for the one thing nobody can take away from you, your peace. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every argument is worth winning. We grow up believing that if we don't defend ourselves, if we don't prove our point, if we don't correct every false accusation, then somehow we've lost. But the truth is, you don't need to win every argument. In fact, the constant need to win is often the fastest way to lose your peace, your time, and even your relationships. Think about it. How many arguments have you been in that didn't change anything? You raised your voice, you spent energy, you lost sleep, and at the end of it, the other person didn't suddenly say, you know what, you're right. No, they walked away still believing what they wanted, and you walked away exhausted. That's the trap of arguing for the sake of winning. It rarely produces growth. Most of the time, it just fuels pride. There's a difference between defending yourself when necessary and fighting every single battle that comes your way. If someone spreads a lie about you, you may feel the urge to correct it with everyone who heard it. If someone insults you online, you may want to clap back with the perfect comeback. If someone in your family challenges your choices, you may feel you have to prove why you're right. But here's the thing you don't. Your worth is not dependent on whether people agree with you. And your peace is not built on convincing people to see things your way. Here's what I've learned. When someone is committed to misunderstanding you, no argument will change their mind. You can explain yourself until you're blue in the face, but if they've already decided not to listen, your words are wasted. And what's worse, your energy is drained. That's why you need to remind yourself, I don't need to win every argument. Sometimes silence is the strongest response. Sometimes walking away is the wisest choice. Because at the end of the day, peace is better than being right. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times when you should speak up. Times when truth matters, when justice is at stake, when silence would cause harm. But that's very different from trying to win every little debate that comes across your path. The argument about who left the dishes in the sink. The argument about who's right about a minor detail in a conversation. The argument with a stranger on social media you'll never even meet. None of that deserves your full energy. Yet so many of us pour our strength into these small battles and wonder why we feel drained. Ask yourself this: what do I actually gain by winning this argument? Do I gain peace, or do I just gain pride? Because if the only thing you're winning is the satisfaction of saying, "See, I told you so," then you've gained nothing of lasting value. But if you choose to let it go, you've gained your calm, your clarity, and your self-control. And those are worth far more than proving a point. I want you to picture your life like a long road trip. Along the way, you're going to see distractions on the side of the road, people waving you down to stop and argue, to explain yourself, to prove your worth. If you pull over every time, you'll never reach your destination. You'll waste your fuel on detours that don't matter. But if you keep your eyes forward, if you remind yourself that not every distraction deserves your attention, you'll move faster, lighter, freer. And here's something powerful. You don't just protect yourself when you let go of unnecessary arguments, you protect your relationships too. How many marriages, friendships, and families break down not because of one big issue, but because of hundreds of small, pointless arguments stacked over time. Choosing peace doesn't mean you avoid honest communication. It means you value connection more than the need to always be right. Sometimes, I understand your perspective is stronger than, let me prove my perspective. The reality is people rarely remember who won the argument. What they remember is how you made them feel during it. Did you leave them feeling heard, or did you leave them feeling belittled? Did you protect the relationship, or did you sacrifice it just to feel superior for a moment? If you can keep that in mind, you'll realize that winning the argument often isn't worth losing the connection. So the next time you feel yourself getting pulled into a battle of words, pause. Ask yourself, does this really matter? Will winning this change anything important in my life? Or am I about to spend energy proving something to someone who doesn't even care? If the answer is no, let it go. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's self-control. That's knowing that your peace is worth more than your pride. At the end of the day, you don't need to prove yourself to anyone who's determined not to see your value. You don't need to waste your voice on arguments that lead nowhere. You don't need to win every fight, because real strength isn't found in being louder, it's found in being wiser. And wisdom often sounds a lot like silence. So tell yourself every day if you need to, I don't need to win every argument. Because the more you live that truth, the freer you become. Free from unnecessary battles, free from wasted energy, free to spend your time on things that actually matter. And that freedom, that peace, is a victory worth more than any argument you could ever win. One of the heaviest burdens we carry is the belief that we have to stay the same person we've always been. We think because people know us a certain way, because we've made certain choices in the past, because we've lived with certain habits, that we're locked into that version of ourselves forever. But the truth is, you are allowed to grow and change. In fact, you're supposed to. Staying the same doesn't mean you're consistent. Sometimes it just means you're stuck. Think about nature. Nothing stays the same. Trees shed their leaves, rivers change their course, seasons shift. Growth is written into creation itself. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, we feel guilty for wanting change. We feel pressure to keep playing the same role in people's lives, to keep repeating the same patterns, to keep living inside the same limits. But hear this clearly, you are not obligated to stay the same for the comfort of others. You are allowed to outgrow things, outgrow habits, outgrow relationships, even outgrow versions of yourself. The truth is, some people won't like it when you change. They'll say, "You've changed," like it's an insult. And the temptation will be to shrink back, to prove you're still who you were, to make them comfortable again. But if you always stay who you've been, you'll never become who you're meant to be. Growth isn't betrayal, it's necessary. And the people who truly care about you will celebrate it, not shame it. Think about who you were 5 years ago, the way you thought, the things you believed, the choices you made. You wouldn't want to be stuck in that exact version of yourself forever, would you? No, because life teaches you, experiences shape you, and wisdom grows with time. Yet so many of us don't give ourselves permission to evolve. We feel chained to old labels, the quiet one, the reckless one, the unreliable one, the failure. Labels we either gave ourselves or others handed to us. But those labels are not life sentences, they are chapters. And chapters are meant to end so the story can move forward. You are allowed to make new choices, even if they contradict your old ones. You're allowed to set boundaries, now even if you never did before. You're allowed to walk away from things that no longer align with you, even if you once swore you'd never leave. That's not hypocrisy, that's growth. Hypocrisy is pretending you've changed when you haven't. Growth is actually changing even when it makes others uncomfortable. Here's the danger. When you don't allow yourself to grow, you live trapped in the expectations of others. You let their memory of who you used to be dictate who you're allowed to become. Maybe they remember the time you failed, so they assume you'll always fail. Maybe they remember your mistakes, so they never let you forget them. Maybe they liked you better when you were less confident, less disciplined, less aware. But their comfort cannot come at the cost of your evolution. If they prefer the old version of you, that's fine. They're free to stay there. But you are not required to. Growth will cost you some relationships. Growth will require uncomfortable conversations. Growth will force you to leave behind habits you once leaned on. But the cost of staying the same is far greater, because staying the same keeps you repeating cycles that drain you. It keeps you tied to guilt, regret, and limitation. And if you keep waiting for permission to grow, you'll never take the step. So here's what you remind yourself every day. I am allowed to grow and change. That means you're allowed to have new dreams. You're allowed to think differently than you used to. You're allowed to be proud of the progress nobody else sees. And you're allowed to change direction without apology. Because growth isn't about proving anything to anyone else. It's about becoming the best, truest version of yourself. And let's be real, growth isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like late nights wrestling with old habits. Sometimes it looks like awkwardly trying something new and failing. Sometimes it looks like sitting in silence because the things that used to excite you no longer do. Growth can feel lonely, it can feel messy, it can feel uncertain. But it's always worth it. Because even if nobody notices right away, you feel lighter, you feel stronger, you feel more aligned. So the next time someone says, "You've changed," smile and say, "I'm supposed to." Because life is not about staying who you were, it's about becoming who you can be. And that journey requires courage, not permission. Every morning you wake up, you remind yourself, I am allowed to grow and change. And as you believe that, you give yourself the freedom to step into a new chapter, to rewrite your story, and to become the person you know deep down you were always meant to be. Everywhere you look, the world is telling you you're not enough. Advertisements tell you you're not successful enough, so you need their product. Social media tells you you're not good looking enough, so you need to filter and compare. Sometimes even people around you, without meaning to, make you feel like you're not doing enough, achieving enough, or being enough. And if you're not careful, you start believing it. You start chasing validation like it's oxygen, convincing yourself that once you reach a certain milestone, once you get that promotion, once you find that relationship, once you earn that recognition, then you'll finally be enough. But here's the truth you need to remind yourself every single day: I am enough right now, someday. Not once I've proved myself, not after I fix every flaw, right now. As you are, with your imperfections, with your progress, with your story, you are enough. The reason this is so hard to believe is because we've tied our worth to achievement. We think our value comes from what we produce, what we accomplish, what we can show others. And while achievements are good, they're not the foundation of your worth. Your worth is intrinsic. It was there before you ever succeeded, and it will still be there if you fail. Think about a newborn baby. That baby hasn't accomplished anything, hasn't earned a degree, hasn't built a reputation, and yet nobody doubts that baby is valuable, worthy enough. So why do we forget that about ourselves as adults? At what point did we decide that love and value had to be earned? When you remind yourself, I am enough right now, you break that cycle. You stop living like your value is a paycheck waiting for approval. You start living like your worth is a truth that can't be revoked. And the amazing thing is, when you truly believe this, you actually perform better, you live freer, you love deeper. Because you're no longer carrying the pressure to constantly prove yourself. Think about the way you talk to yourself. Most of us say things in our own heads that we would never say to a friend. You're not good enough. You'll never measure up. You're falling behind. Imagine if you spoke to someone you love that way, they would crumble. So why do we speak that way to ourselves? Why do we measure ourselves only by what we haven't done, instead of acknowledging the worth we already have? That inner voice is powerful. It needs to be reminded daily. I am enough. Being enough doesn't mean you don't grow. It doesn't mean you don't have goals. It doesn't mean you stop learning, improving, striving. It means your growth comes from a place of fullness, not emptiness. It means you pursue goals not because you're trying to fix something broken, but because you're building on a foundation that's already whole. There's a huge difference between growing because you're lacking and growing because you're already enough and want to expand. One is rooted in insecurity. The other is rooted in strength. And here's the reality. You will never reach a point in life where everyone claps for you, where everyone validates you, where everyone agrees you're enough. If your sense of worth depends on applause, you'll live in a constant state of exhaustion. Because as soon as you please one group of people, another will criticize you. As soon as you achieve one thing, someone else will set the bar higher. That's why your worth has to be something you affirm for yourself. No one else can give it to you, and no one else can take it away. I want you to picture something. Imagine you're holding a diamond. Even if it's covered in dirt, even if it's overlooked, even if no one sees its shine in the moment, it's still valuable. Its worth doesn't disappear just because it's hidden. That's you, even on your worst day, even when you feel overlooked, even when you don't feel shiny or successful. Your value doesn't disappear. You are enough because you exist, because you matter, because your life has meaning. And when you really internalize this truth, you stop chasing validation in unhealthy places. You stop overcommitting just to prove you're worthy. You stop tolerating toxic relationships just to feel accepted. You stop exhausting yourself trying to hit some imaginary standard that was never yours to begin with. Instead, you start living authentically, you start setting boundaries, you start pursuing goals that align with who you are, not who you're trying to impress. So when you wake up tomorrow and your first thought is, I'm not doing enough, I'm not successful enough, I'm not worthy enough, you stop yourself, you take a breath, and you say, I am enough right now, not because you've achieved perfection, not because you've arrived at every dream, but because your worth has never been on trial in the first place. Every day, remind yourself of this. Write it down. Speak it out loud, because the world will constantly try to convince you otherwise, but the truth doesn't change. You don't need to be more, do more, or prove more to be enough. You already are, right here, right now. At the end of the day, life isn't about controlling everything that happens to you. It's about controlling what you remind yourself of when it does. The world will test you. People will misunderstand you. Mistakes will happen. Pressure will mount. And if you don't anchor yourself in the right truths, you'll drift with every storm that comes your way. That's why these daily reminders matter so much. I am in control of my response. I am not defined by my mistakes. My peace is my responsibility. I don't need to win every argument. I am allowed to grow and change. I am enough right now. And the rest that follow, each one is a tool, a reset, a way to ground yourself when everything around you feels shaky. Think of them like a compass. Every morning when you wake up, you're stepping into a world that will try to pull you in 1,000 different directions. Fear will pull you one way. Comparison will pull you another. Stress, negativity, self-doubt, they'll all try to dictate your path. But when you carry these reminders, it's like holding a compass that always points you back to center. No matter what happens, you know how to reorient yourself. And here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect at this. You won't always remember every reminder in the heat of the moment. You won't always respond the right way or stay calm or let go as easily as you want to. But that's okay. Growth is not about never stumbling. It's about getting better each time you do. It's about choosing progress over perfection. So let this be the takeaway. Your daily self-talk shapes your daily life. The words you repeat to yourself are either tearing you down or building you up. They're either chaining you to the past or freeing you for the future. That's why you can't afford to be careless with them. You have to choose them with intention. And if you do, if you carry these truths with you, not just as words but as beliefs, you'll begin to notice something. You'll notice that you respond with more calm. You'll notice that you forgive yourself quicker. You'll notice that you don't get pulled into every argument, every drama, every distraction. You notice that you breathe lighter, walk stronger, live freer. So as you step out into tomorrow, remember this: your life is shaped less by what happens to you and more by what you remind yourself in the middle of it. Speak truth over your day. Speak strength over your challenges. Speak peace over your storms. Because the words you choose will either fuel your fear or feed your strength. And the good news, you already have everything you need to win that battle. Because it begins with one choice, what you tell yourself. So tell yourself the truth, tell yourself every day, and watch how your life begins to change.